How long do you intend to live? How long do you think humans can live?
Oh, in a full year, and that lets you save. Look here.
Welcome to a brand new edition of Ageless Energy, where we talk about how to burn fat, increase energy, and balance hormones for women over 40. Over the past 20 years as a performance coach, I've worked with hundreds of women that have the exact same struggles you do. I hope to shine some light with this podcast on what can be the most challenging time of your life and let you know there is hope to find success with your health and what you're looking for. Please share and enjoy. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Drew, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I've been a busy boy, and so I've got a lot to share with your audience. It's exciting. It's diverse information, certainly kind of related to your audience. We'll be talking about people that I interviewed in menopause space. And actually, interestingly, you don't even know this. My wife has a pretty substantial TikTok channel speaking about menopause in Spanish. She's actually from Panama. So I'm excited to share all sorts of fun stuff with you.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. Well, let's get into it. We had a great conversation in the last interview, so that's why I was excited that we got a chance to connect again. So give our audience a chance to learn who you are and what you do in case they didn't listen to that one.
Yeah, so everything that I'm about to share is actually in the book. And the book is called Live Longer and Better. Your journey to living longer and better has never been more achievable than today. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about the book and why I wrote it. But first, really what got me into this space. Because I think if you had asked me 8 years ago, hey, Chris, or told me, Chris, you're going to be in the longevity space, you're going to actually have a health supplement on the market, I would have said, Drew, no, that's probably not going to happen. I don't know how I get from where I was, and at the time I was a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist. How do I get from there to a health supplement and a longevity expert? Like, these are things that don't make sense to me. It's all based on this molecule. So I'm holding up a molecule. For those listening, it looks like a soccer ball, where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. This molecule was discovered at Rice University here in Houston in 1985. The three scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996. So a short 11 years from discovery to being awarded the Nobel Prize. The molecule's amazing. It performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is often where people are like, I thought we were talking about a supplement. At no point in my life have I looked at a car battery and thought, what components in a car battery should I be consuming on a daily basis? Ironically, the story gets a little worse first. A certain shape on the exterior of the soccer ball shaped molecule, by the way, we call that ESS60, is reminiscent of benzene. And for that reason, the scientists thought that it would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. My lab provided the material. My lab is actually mentioned in that study. So we're the foundation of this industry. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental results in history. It took a while. My business partner and I really didn't want to get into the supplement industry. You know, you're familiar with it. There's challenges in this industry. Maybe a lot of challenges would be a fair statement. And at the time, we were happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists. We're selling research quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. Very different types of market. Ultimately, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. Our phone started ringing 10 times a day instead of 2 times a week relative to that specific product or that particular formulation. And so then we got into the supplement business. Now, my job, chief scientist, and also the kind of marketing guy inside the company is, well, is 90% a significant extension of life? Like, you kind of intuitively know it. You don't go to the vitamin section of any store and go like, this one doubles your life, or this one adds, it turned out the next best way to extend your life is calorie restriction. If you restrict your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. So I'm figuring out all this information. Where does it sit? Our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. So I'm diving into sleep and how important is sleep. And the reality is I've just always felt two things about acquiring knowledge. One, you should just share it, right? Because you're taking the time to acquire this knowledge. Maybe you have some sort of audience, or maybe you need to create an audience and share that information because that's the right thing to do. And then the next one is very, very much more selfish. I believe that when you teach something is when you actually cement that information in your own mind. And so I figured I wanted to write a book. I didn't know exactly. I'm not a writer. I, participate in some of the blogs on our website. I'm providing guidance and consulting on the writing that happens for our business. But I just didn't write regularly. And I ended up finding the right co-author. He's a 2-time New York Times #1 bestseller. So just to get to a New York Times bestseller, just to get on the list is a Herculean task. To get to #1 is asymptotically harder, so significantly harder. He's done it twice. Very lucky to have Dr. Jerome Corsi as my co-author. And really, he's the prose guy. It's my story. It's the story of this ESS60 molecule, the discovery of the Nobel Prize winning molecule, the award of that Nobel Prize. How do you build a company? Kind of interesting piece of the story in the book is, if I were to say, hey, Drew, I just have access to this molecule, this soccer ball shaped molecule, and I think researchers are going to need it. Do you have any ideas on marketing? Your first thought is, well, you make a website, right? You make a website and then scientists who are looking for it will find it. In 1991, no websites, no internet, right? So what are the challenges of marketing a business pre-internet? Very different than marketing a business during the internet. Opportunities to speak like you with people like you to audiences like the ones you have just didn't exist at all. And so that's a kind of unique aspect. And so that's really kind of my background story and why I wrote the book. And I'm excited to have this book kind of available to people who are interested in that story and living longer and better.
So let's dive in here a little bit and give our listeners some action steps. What are something that we can look at that would make a difference in people's lives that they can start doing today?
Yeah, I think, and driven by the fact that our most consistent testimonial involves sleep, right? And I dug into sleep. There's an amazing book by Dr. Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. And it chronicles 25 years of his research at a well respected institution at the PhD level. 25 years of research of what happens negatively to your physiology and your brain function when you don't get enough sleep. You just did a sleep podcast recently, right? And so you probably have all of these things top of mind. He digs into that. And so I would say one of the keys that comes out of this is really to kind of support that sleep is incredibly important for you. And also to talk a little bit about there are prescription drugs that are out on the market that are prescribed by physicians. Dr. Matthew Walker talks about how these are taken right before you fall asleep. They're actually depressants, so they don't allow you to get the healing and restorative sleep that you actually need. You do feel refreshed in the morning, but you don't get the actual REM and in-REM sleep you need. I think that's one important takeaway that comes out of the book.
Yeah, that's super interesting. We do a lot of work around sleep in particular. We produce magnesium supplements, and our audience knows firsthand the benefits of natural ways to improve sleep. What are some suggestions that you have for your audience in the book that might include deeper sleep or REM sleep?
Yeah. Well, first, magnesium, right? Excellent for sleep. Glad you have that supplement. It's also really good for kind of muscles. I'm taking lots of magnesium right now because I tend to have muscles that like to cramp. Although fascinatingly, because I've been diving down this rabbit hole, doctors don't know why our muscles cramp, but that's people say it's dehydration, people say it's potassium, but when you actually look at the literature, there is no explanation, which is extremely bizarre. Maybe we'll figure that out soon. I think, and really this is driven by Matthew Walker. One, of course, I would recommend my product, but let's just push that aside. He talks about you've got to have 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity every single night. The best things you can do is cool your room. I think like optimal temperature is about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. It's somewhere between 65 and 68. So you want a cool room. Your body temperature actually needs to decrease by, I think, a degree in order for really to get that deep sleep. Getting to sleep at the exact same time and waking up at the exact same time are really important. And we'll come back to sleep because it's something that I asked 55 experts that I interviewed for the Longevity Summit. A lot of them, what are the tips you would have for longevity? A lot of them referenced sleep. The next thing is, I would say, get your device out of your hand at least an hour, if not 2 hours before you get in bed. Do not be in bed scrolling, and we're all guilty of this from time to time. But that is not good for you because of the blue light that's coming off of those devices. And then one other is, if a lot of people believe that having a drink actually helps them sleep, and you will go to sleep faster, but it actually negatively impacts your sleep. I've got an Aura ring. And when I have 2 drinks, I can see the profile, my sleep profile, the negative impact on that profile. If I had those 2 drinks 2 hours, if I stopped having a drink 2 hours before I fell asleep, that is dramatically relieved. And so you get more normal sleep. So those are the things that you can find in the book. Plus, I talk about Dr. David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, which is an amazing kind of testament to the fact that we can live longer, the fact that we can live a lot longer, and the fact that in mice, they're already reversing age. They're actually reversing it and then accelerating it and then reversing it again, which is amazing. So those are some of the things that I'd highlight in the book.
So, okay, couple things here. Do you or your wife, so we know in the menopausal stage, sleep becomes more challenging for women. Do you have any specific suggestions? I know we won't focus on sleep the whole time, but any suggestions that may help?
Well, I think, you're right. So I certainly remember, and my wife is barely having these anymore. So she's fully menopausal. I think that by the way, I wouldn't even know the distinction of menopausal, but I did interview 2 experts in the realm of menopause for my longevity summit. So I now have like peri, and then post. So she definitely had hot flashes. I'll tell you, and this is not coming from a sales perspective, just coming from my wife to this day says that our product, MyVitalC and olive oil, and we actually have one that's labeled menopause support, was actually very beneficial for her. I think and it's one of the reasons that she has so much popularity on her channel, is that women end up going through menopause and they don't actually, nobody's chatting about it. Like, it's kind of forbidden to have conversations about it. So reach out and find those places so you can understand better what you're going through, because you always get a sense of relief when you're like, oh, this is exactly what's happening to me, and that other people are going through this, and you can, what are other people doing to really try and alleviate these symptoms?
So, okay. And then the other question I had is about your drinks. What are you talking about? Any type of drink 2 hours before bed, or something in particular?
Alcohol. Yeah, alcohol. It's really the alcohol. Sorry, that could have been very much more specific. So having alcohol before you go to bed, people, again, think that it helps them sleep. And again, you will fall asleep faster, but it negatively impacts your REM and your NREM sleep.
Gotcha. Yeah, I believe that 100%. So tell me, I feel when I used to drink, well, I was in college, so we had a master's in drinking and partying, and then
oh, you didn't get to PhD level?
Oh, maybe I did. No, but I never felt like, you pass out or you drink till and then you never get a restful night's sleep. So I could imagine, even at a lesser amount, a couple drinks probably isn't like, you might fall asleep, but it's not going to give you like a real deep, refreshing sleep, right?
Yeah, I think there's this concept of relaxing, and actually Huberman did a really good, probably like 2 hours on the impacts of alcohol. And even Peter Attia, kind of both extremely well respected scientists in the longevity space, says, he's interesting. He's like, there is literally no data to suggest that alcohol is good for you in any way and at any time. Having said that, I still like to have a drink or two on occasion. And I think he's actually having a drink a night. There is this concept that, it unwinds you from the end of the day. But the reality is that it's not good for you. And it would be better to find another way to unwind. Giving the feedback that I got in this kind of longevity summit that I interviewed 55 experts for, I would say the thing to lean on is movement, not necessarily exercise. I like to make a distinction there because I think exercise for some people who haven't really gotten into movement, who maybe would consider themselves couch potatoes, exercise feels like a daunting subject and this just can't go down there. Don't worry about exercise. Just move, right? Move. And if it needs to be as short as a 5-minute walk, make it a 5-minute walk. You want to have a goal and eventually you want to increase that. But if the thought of increasing it causes you to not do the 5 minutes, then just say, I'm going to walk 5 minutes a day for the rest of my life. By the way, 5 minutes per day is better than 35 minutes one time a week. It's the per day process. And then, eventually you'll probably learn to love it and extend that time. But if that thought causes you to not do it, don't have that thought. Just have the thought of a 5-minute walk.
Do you have a favorite chapter or a favorite book that you really enjoy? I know I've written a couple myself. It's really hard to pinpoint, but anything that stands out in your mind, this is what you got to share?
Yeah, I think I share some really interesting pieces and I try to give, things that insights and, I think I love the phrase that a wise man learns from his mistakes. A truly wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So I have my mistakes, like some of my mistakes. Like at one point I fell asleep behind the wheel of a car. Now, nobody got hurt, didn't crash. I just literally the car that was in front of me all of a sudden was a lot closer to me because I was just out. And it was a terrifying situation. So I try and share these stories like, pull over, get a nap, do something. This is not an ideal situation. Make sure to avoid it. We had, in the early days, we had an explosion in our facility. Okay, don't have explosions. This is probably not a good idea. And what was the mindset that was wrong and what caused that? And I think it's those more personal stories. I do share a little bit about my dad was in the Air Force, so I moved every 2 years. And what's it like to move every 2 years? And how does that impact your personality? I think it's those pieces that are fun and interesting. And then, okay, so take all of that history and kind of who I developed into and start applying that to what I'm reading and learning about relative to longevity. And so the whole thing kind of becomes cohesive.
Where do you think the industry's going? So I feel like is this baby boomer age range, is that a higher population? Why does, I personally feel, which is why I'm excited about this topic, is that longevity is kind of the future. Like it used to be, let's see how much weight you could lift. Let's see how big your muscles are. And then it was like maybe even an endurance. Let's see how far you could run or fast. Then we realized, of course, that puts a lot of damage and stress on your body. I feel like flexibility, mobility, this longevity is the future. How does that fit into what you're working towards here?
I think you're exactly right. And I've got a very kind of specific example that ties that together. Let me first just talk about the summit, because I think it's interesting how I ended up doing a summit. The same way as I said, hey, I don't see how I'm going to go from happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist to becoming a longevity expert. I don't know how that's going to happen. If you had asked me 7 years, if you had said, Drew, you were like, hey, Chris, you're going to do a longevity summit. You're going to interview 55 experts in longevity. 3 of them are going to be Dr. Stephen Gundry, right? A former practicing pediatric thoracic heart surgeon, the kind of career that you would never leave just because it's so lucrative. And he left it because he realized he could deliver more value to people with a different angle than just doing heart surgery. He's amazing. He's also a 4-time New York Times bestselling author. Dave Asprey, who is the father of biohacking. And some people don't know his name, but they know the name Bulletproof Coffee. So he's the creator of Bulletproof Coffee. And then Ben Greenfield, he is significantly less known outside of longevity and biohacking space, but he's written like 14 books, an unbelievable wealth of knowledge. If you had said, that's what I was going to do, I would have said, Drew, I really like to set myself up for success, not for failure. I'm just not even going to start that task. But here I am on the other side of it, and that's exactly what I've done. Now, I did some really smart things. One of them was I asked each and every expert 3 questions. There's actually 4 questions, but the relevant ones are, how long do you intend to live? How long do you think humans can live? And I think when you're asking about longevity and that we're in this change, I think we're in this quantum shift. And we're so much in the middle of this quantum shift that even the longevity experts who would argue that we're going to live a lot longer struggled with this. Now, think about this. I asked everyone, how long do you want to live? And how long can humans live? And only 3 of the 55 experts gave the same number.
What number is that?
Whatever the number was. So usually it's some are like talking 80s, a number we're talking 120s, right? Because you have Jean Clement, who's like 122. But if you believe humans can live to 120, why isn't your goal 120? And I can tell you why their goal isn't 120, because even experts in longevity aren't yet able to separate living infirmed and debilitated from aging, right? We believe that if you're going to live to 120, it's not going to be pretty, right? We believe you're going to live in an infirmed and debilitated state. And where we are in the middle of this shift right now, this quantum shift, I call it the longevity revolution, is, hey, we can live a lot longer and we can live healthy. I mean, a lot of people, when I tell them the original story about this ESS60 molecule and that the test subjects live 90% longer, a lot of people are like, why would I want to live longer? And this was, right? This was perplexing to me.
And you're like, why wouldn't you?
Right. But what happens is the same thing. We're not able to extricate debilitated and infirmed from aging. And so if I change the question, I'm like, hey, Drew, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today, and you have the same physical capacity that you have today at 150, same as today at 150, would you be interested in living to 150? Now, the reality is, there's a number of people, the answer is no. And I think they need to, open their minds and search out things that they can find joy in. But for the vast majority, the answer is yes, because that forces them to separate living infirmed in an debilitated state from aging. And the whole point of this is even the 55 experts aren't separating it, right? Because in their mind, it's 80 or 90 or 120, but I just want to live until I'm good. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're longevity experts, is because we're pushing for this mindset that you can live longer and you can live in a less debilitated state than you picture.
What does Dave say? He said he wants to live well over 100 and something.
So it's interesting. His kind of well publicized number is 180. But
Okay.
when I asked him on the longevity summit, he gave this kind of esoteric, I just want to live long enough until I decide to go meditate in a cave, and then I rise up out of my body and go, astral projection, explore the universe. I was like, okay, that's an answer. It's not again, the number doesn't match, right? How long can humans live and how long do you intend to live didn't match. But yeah, his was an interesting one.
One of the things I would like to ask of you guys is that some of you know that I don't run ads on this show and don't plan on in the immediate future. So the only ask I have for you is that you help us spread the word so we can help more women burn body fat, increase energy, and balance their hormones. And the only way that we can do that is if you can rate and review this podcast. So the single thing that I could have you do or could ask of you is to leave a review. It'll take 5 minutes or one swipe of the thumb. It would mean the absolute world to me. And more importantly, you could change the world for someone else. As many of you know, there's plenty of women that struggle in this age group for balancing hormones, increasing energy, and burning body fat. So if you could help spread the word, that would make a big difference in our life and probably someone else's as well. All right, so we got that longevity thing coming up. We don't have too much time here. Why don't you give us an idea of how we can we tune in, or give us some more details of what we can do just in case here.
It's absolutely free. Let me talk about kind of working. If you're interested in the book, Live Longer and Better, you can actually go to the website, livelongerandbetterbook.com. On that page, There's links. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can buy the book on our website. And I'm going to share with you, I'm very proud of this. The book is about $20. Again, you can get it on Amazon, $20. You can get it from our website on $20. On our website, we also have signed copies of it. It's $10 for my signature and then $15 for both my signature and Dr. Jerome Corsi's signature. 100% of that fee, so the $10 or $15, goes to a charity called Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember there was a movie, The Sound of Freedom, recently about child sex trafficking, which is obviously something we want to get rid of. Operation Underground Railroad, I actually saw him speak at an event. It blew me away. And so I'm very proud. If you get a signed copy, 100% of the signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. On that same page, livelongerandbetterbook.com, there is a link to the summit. The summit is free. Again, 55 experts, 45 plus hours of content. All you need to do is give your name and your email, and you have access. It's from February 26th through March 3rd, and it's 100% free. Now, this format is we release 7 to 8 videos per day, and they're just a batch of them is released, and you can watch whatever ones you want. If you miss one or you want to go back and catch one, you can actually just purchase access to all of them for $99. So for $99, you get access to 45 hours of experts talking about longevity. And no, particular to your audience, I interviewed Deborah Atkinson. She has a podcast called Flipping 50, which I think is interesting because it's like, are you flipping 50 or are you flipping 50 off and saying, screw you, I'm going to live younger, whatever. And then Zora Benamu, she has a big kind of menopause group. And so I got to interview really great experts in kind of the menopause realm. So you can imagine I was doing a lot of learning for those interviews and really for all of them. If they're interested in trying the product, we've got a link for your audience, and it's myvitalc.com/Drew Tadia, right? And if you land there, we have it in 3 oils: olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. People ask, well, which one? We always recommend the olive oil for 2 reasons. The first is we're a science-based organization. All the research is in olive oil. And then the second, we can get the most amount of the ESS60 molecule into that olive oil. And so that's what we recommend. I would also say that you get 25% off if you go on subscription. You can cancel it at any time. Don't worry. Our customer service department has 850 5-star reviews. They are not trained to talk you out of your subscription. Just take care of canceling your subscription. Just take advantage of that discount. And there is also a coupon code for $15 off. Again, that's Drew Tadia. And the link is myvitalc.com/Drew Tadia.
Awesome. Is there anything that we missed? A couple more minutes here if you wanted to throw something out there. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Yeah, I think this was fascinating. So I asked every expert, give me 2 to 3 habits, protocols, mindsets. Let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts for longevity and a long health span that you would share. And then we aggregated the data. 33% mentioned sleep, 52% mentioned exercise, which I think I've kind of alluded to. I think we should separate exercise from movement, but 52% mentioned exercise, 52 mentioned diet, and then 46, so more than the amount that mentioned sleep, mentioned mindset. And my first thought was, just because you go read the book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, sleep is so incredibly important. I think maybe the experts got it wrong because they had sleep at 33% and then mindset at 46%. And then I started thinking about what is the implication of mindset. There's actually some stories told in the actual longevity summit, actually one by Dr. Gundry, where as I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute, mindset, maybe they did get it wrong, but they got it wrong not the way I was thinking. They got it wrong that mindset is actually more important than they even specified. If you need to improve your sleep and you have the mindset to do the things that you need to do to improve your sleep, that's a problem. If you need to get movement or exercise more and you don't have the mindset to do that, that's a problem. That's a detrimental problem to your longevity. And finally, if you need to change your diet, which most who are on the sad standard American diet need to change their diet. If you need to and you don't have the mindset to, so I would actually argue that mindset is the most important thing, which is kind of why I said give 2 to 3 habits, protocols, mindsets about longevity that you would share. So I thought that was fascinating and an interesting kind of juxtaposition of what turns out to be important to the experts.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. Because if you don't have the mindset, if you don't believe that this is going to improve, or you don't believe you can do that, then there's going to be no connection. What's the point? We talk about you need to have a why. There needs to be some passion. There needs to be connection there. And if you don't have that mindset of this is actually going to be beneficial to me, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, you're left, squandering or squalor is, just kind of flailing around, making some adjustments with no particular goal in mind. And I think the goal should be to live longer and healthier, right? Like the book title, Live Longer and Better. And again, the link is livelongerandbetterbook.com. But what's the point of living longer if it's not going to be as good or better than where we're at? That is the mindset that you need to have. And I do actually believe, if you kind of ask me, I've had 125 as my target age for a long time. It's still kind of the target with the knowledge that it's going to change. And I'll leave you with this, because I do think ultimately we'll be able to live forever. In 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years. Today, medical information doubles every 73 days. So more than 4 times per year, medical information is doubling. So anything that you can think is possible from a medical perspective, then that's going to happen. And it's going to happen a lot faster than you think. And by the way, that 73 days doesn't include AI, right? Because it's a recent number and AI is fairly recent on the scene. Ironically, I used AI to calculate in 10 years how quickly if you look at that kind of asymptotic curve, it'll be doubling every 15 minutes. And so what is possible is going to happen a lot faster than we think.
Which is anything.
Yeah. which is living forever, which at some point there'll be somebody, the last person to die of old age or natural causes. And although he or she won't know it, it would suck to be that person. I want to be the person beforehand, just who gets across that finish line.
Right. All right, Chris, thanks so much for coming on. We always appreciate your time and insights.
Drew, thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure.